And let me say this too, because I didn't touch on this, right? You know, when you look at Sudanese, right, they're the darkest people on the planet. You don't get no darker than Sudanese. They're like like the Ugandan president said, right? They're actually blue. Like he said, right? They're actually blue, right? When you look at them, they're the purest you're going to get on the planet. Unless you venture out past Antarctica and see someone else, you know, they haven't allowed us to go that far yet, right? So, like, look at this, right? Let me say this. When you look at the Sudanese, right, you see how they have um, the Sudanese who are like very thin, long neck, and, like they have the Barbie, like the women have the Barbie shaped bodies, and the men have the overly cardiolized bodies. Like they're very, very, very thin and sculptured, right? You look at the Sudanese, right? The Dinka tribe, the Nuer tribe, right? You look at them, right? If you look closely, as blue as they are, right, you will see that they have Nordic DNA. So they're Nords. Nordic, Noir. You look at them, right, and you see that they have Nordic faces. They have Nordic chin bones. You know, if you're in a joke with someone, right, you're in a battle of um, doing the dozen, right, roasting each other, right, and someone says you're bony, they're talking about that Nordic in you. You're bony, right? Sudanese have that Nordic bone. And when you go directly above Sudan, right, you're in Europe. You go directly above the United States, you're in Canada. This is why when you see the octoroon male who have all his hair right here and growing out, and they be like, he's an Arab. No, it just means his ancestors were Vikings. You know, Vikings were very hairy people. You see what I mean? You go to Philadelphia, you'll see a lot of men who have that bushy beard. You know what I mean? Like they have that trimmed up Afro beard. You know what I mean? Like it's real long. I didn't start seeing that type of beard until, you know, Donovan McNabb came around, right? That's when I really started seeing that. But like, you have to pay attention to phenotypes and genetic markers. You'll know exactly who people are. You'll know this guy right here with that large beard, he's probably going to be a cop or a security guard. You see that Nordic looking Sudanese person, that long body, that long strideful walk, they're probably going to be a model. You know what I mean? Like, you just got to look at people and you'll know exactly who people are when you look at them. Like you look at Michael Jordan, right? He's a mechanic. He's a janitor. This is how you know who people are when you look at them. You know their temperaments. You know everything about them just by looking at them. You know everything about them. You know, like I look at my line, right, and I look at my father, right. I think of my father as like a poet. You know, my father reminds me of the R&B singer from the Whispers group. The twin who had the bushy mustache, that's how my father mustache is, right? Just like him, right? Square face, not really tall, very dark skin. You know what I mean? Um, you know exactly who people are when you look at them. You know what I mean? So, you know, I don't know why, but what this really shows me is that, like, people aren't really thinking. Like, if you're taking your time to argue with this person and they're arguing back with you to the point where you all are getting into like they're making videos about it. Like, these are videos that they're probably going to want to take down in the future. You know what I mean? Like, you're insulting one another in the public. Like, you're making videos and editing videos about each other's, racial makeups. That's not good. You know what I mean? It's not good. So my hope is that, those guys, they don't, like the red movement, right? And you have uh the black movement, right? The American Indians. Like, I hope that in the future, right, they start to go to each other's events, like the red movement, they come to the barbecues and picnics. The blacks, they start to go to the powwows. You go to Virginia, all those Indians are Welsh. Like, really come together and kind of see, like, the differences, they're not really large, because you notice, like, once you get on ancestry.com and you start looking at this person and that person, the first people they're going to show you, and this is, to me, like, this is kind of wrong, and they know it's wrong. The first people they start to show you is your European cousinry. Then they don't show your African cousinry, because your African side is supposed to be the first people they show you. Especially if you like a maroon, you're not supposed to see that European ancestry yet. You're supposed to see, like, oh, this is my first cousin in Mozambique. Oh, this is my first cousin in the Ivory Coast. That's what you're supposed to see, and they don't do that. Great peace, Yakoki.